The cafe door closed with a soft chime, and in that quiet sound, something inside her shattered. The chair across from her was still empty. The coffee in front of her had gone cold. And for the first time in a long while, she wondered if coming here at all had been a mistake she would replay in her mind for years. She sat frozen, not just in her wheelchair, but in the heavy realization that she had been left alone on what was supposed to be her first date in over a decade. Before this story goes any further, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet miracles that happen between broken people, take a moment right now to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them. Her name was Elena, and paralysis had taught her patience in ways no book or sermon ever could. 8 years earlier, a drunk driver had turned her car into twisted metal and her future into a question mark. Her legs never recovered. The friends who promised to visit slowly faded. The man she was engaged to couldn't handle the long hospital months and left with apologies that sounded rehearsed. What remained was her mother's worn-out smile, long nights of physical therapy, and a life rebuilt inch by inch around limitations that never asked her permission. This date had been a victory she didn't want to minimize. She had met him through an online support forum, not for disabilities, but for people starting life again after loss. His messages were gentle and careful, never pitying, never distant. He said he admired her honesty. He said he wanted to meet. She had spent 2 hours choosing a sweater that felt like herself and not like armor. She practiced smiling in the mirror, reminding herself she was still a woman worthy of being seen. The cafe was warm and full of small sounds, clinking cups, low laughter, the hiss of steamed milk. She arrived early because arriving late in a wheelchair always felt like announcing herself. She positioned herself near the window, hands folded, heart beating fast with cautious hope. When 15 minutes passed, she told herself he was stuck in traffic. When 30 minutes passed, she stopped checking her phone because there was nothing new to see. At 45 minutes, the messages disappeared from the app. The profile vanished like it had never existed. The humiliation didn't come loudly. It crept in slowly, like cold air under a door. She felt people looking, or maybe she imagined it. A woman alone in a wheelchair at a cafe table set for two was a story nobody wanted to stare at for too long. Elena kept her chin up, but her chest ached. She wondered why she had believed she could step back into a world that had already decided what she was worth. She considered leaving, but pride rooted her in place. Leaving felt like confirming what he had done to her. Staying hurt, but it was a hurt she chose. She stared out the window, watching people pass, couples holding hands, parents wrangling children, lives moving forward without noticing the quiet collapse happening behind the glass. That was when she noticed the man and the little girl. They stood just outside the cafe, the man crouched down to the child's level, wiping her nose with a tissue. He looked tired in a gentle way, like someone who carried responsibility instead of running from it. The girl clutched a stuffed rabbit missing one ear. She was talking animatedly, hands flying, while he listened as if every word mattered. When they came inside, the girl's eyes immediately caught on Elena's wheelchair, not with fear or discomfort but with curiosity. They approached the counter, but the cafe was full. No tables left except the empty chair. Across from Elena. Elena felt her shoulders tense. She was used to being avoided, not approached. The man hesitated, scanning the room, then glanced at her table. His expression wasn't pity or calculation. It was polite uncertainty. He gestured lightly, as if asking permission from a distance. Elena nodded before she could overthink it. The empty chair was suddenly useful again. They sat, the girl climbing into her seat with a bounce, immediately swinging her legs. The man thanked Elena with a soft smile, his eyes kind but not invasive. They ordered hot chocolate and coffee, and for a moment, the table existed in comfortable silence. Elena expected awkwardness. She expected questions she didn't want to answer. Instead, she felt something else settle in, something unfamiliar but welcome. Normalcy. The girl stared openly at the wheelchair, then at Elena's face, then back at the wheelchair, her brow furrowed in deep thought. Elena braced herself, but what came wasn't painful. The girl simply smiled and leaned her rabbit against the wheel, as if including it in their space. That small gesture undid something in Elena she didn't realize was still tightly knotted. Children saw the world without the filters adults learned. To the girl, the wheelchair was not a tragedy. It was just part of the scene. The man noticed Alina's misty eyes and gave her space, not commenting, not intruding. When the girl spilled some hot chocolate, he cleaned it without scolding, his patience steady. Elena found herself watching them instead of sinking into her own thoughts. There was a story there too, she could tell. Loss, maybe. Hard days. Love that kept showing up anyway. Time passed. The cafe noise faded into background music. Elena realized she hadn't thought about the man who didn't show up in a while. The chair across from her was no longer empty. It was filled with presence, not expectation. Eventually, the girl leaned closer to Elena, fascinated by the buttons on her chair. Elena explained how it worked, how it helped her move. She spoke without shame, without minimizing herself. The girl listened with reverence, like it was the most interesting thing she'd heard all day. The man watched with quiet gratitude, as if Elena had given his daughter something precious without realizing it. When they finished their drinks, the man thanked her again, this time more sincerely, and the girl waved enthusiastically, promising in her own way that this moment mattered to her. As they left, the cafe seemed warmer, brighter. Elena sat there long after they were gone, absorbing the echo of connection. She rolled herself outside eventually, the evening air cool against her face. She expected the familiar heaviness to return, but it didn't fully settle. Instead, she felt lighter, confused by it, but grateful. Being left behind had brought her something she didn't know she needed. Proof that she could still be seen without being abandoned. Days passed. Elena returned to her routines, therapy, work-from-home tasks, quiet evenings. Yet the memory of the cafe stayed vivid. She caught herself smiling at it, replaying the girl's curiosity, the man's steady calm. It wasn't romantic. It was human. And that felt rare somehow. A week later, Elena went back to the same cafe, not because she expected anything, but because she refused to let that place remain a symbol of rejection. She ordered the same drink, sat by the same window. This time, she came for herself. She almost didn't notice them at first. The same man. The same little girl. This time, the girl recognized her instantly, pointing excitedly, her rabbit bouncing. The man looked surprised, then relieved, like seeing a friendly face in a crowd. They sat together again, this time with intention, not necessity. There, conversations grew naturally, about everyday things, about parenting, about adapting to lives that hadn't followed the original plan. Elena learned he was named Mark, a single father after losing his wife to illness 3 years earlier. The cafe had become their special place because it reminded them that joy could still exist outside grief. Elena shared her story too, not as a confession, but as a chapter. She didn't gloss over the pain, but she didn't live inside it either. Mark listened in the same way he listened to his daughter, fully present. There was no rush, no pressure, just two adults acknowledging the weight they carried and choosing to sit down anyway. Weeks turned into months. Coffee became walks in the park. The little girl insisted on racing Elena in her wheelchair, laughing every time she lost dramatically. Mark never treated Elena like she needed saving. He treated her like someone worth building something with, slowly and carefully. The world didn't suddenly become easy. There were stairs. There were inaccessible places. There were days Elena felt frustrated and tired. But there was also laughter in the kitchen, shared silences that felt safe, and the steady understanding that love didn't always arrive the way movies promised. Sometimes it showed up quietly, in an empty chair filled by strangers who didn't stay strangers for long.